The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Topic Time with Harrison Young. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Topic Time with Harrison Young. We are covering new turf like never before. I've gone north of the border before, but never to Canada. We are now going to the Pac Northwest, the extreme Pac Northwest, British Columbia, Alberta. I have an author out there. I'm going to talk to him in a couple of minutes, but before we get to him, I've got to read these incredible underwriters, and then we will commence per usual. We got some new ones, and that's great. So we got JFC Party Rentals in Taunton. They're a new one. We got Sweezy Fence Erectors in Whitman. We got A1's Tire at Auto Center in Brockton. Always in search of new service writers and techs. And even if you don't know how to do it, send someone by that does, if you can. In Brockton, we got 111 Tattoo Collective, 478 Torrey Street in Brockton, their new location. We got Lynch's Towing Auto Cycle and Truck Center in Brockton. One number for towing, one number for projects. Always in search of new scrap metal, tires, anything to do, wheels, anything to do with transportation. My pal Lynchy in Brockton can handle there. We got John's Greenhouses and Florist Shop in Brockton. We got Auto Town, Auto Glass, and Auto Body in Abington. We got Fadeologist 101 Barbershop in Brockton. We got Armor Sports in Taunton. We got Countertops Express in North Attleboro. Experts in the installation and removal of quartz and granite. We got the Gunrunner LLC in Middleborough, your Second Amendment Freedom Store. We got Grant's Rental in Bridgewater. We got Eastern Fitness in the Village Shops in Northeastern. We got Doggy Boutique, all breed professional grooming for dogs and cats, run by my great next door neighbor, Debbie Siddell in Brockton. We got RW Carpet and Flooring in Norton, covering floors for 50 years. And we got Joe's Diner in Taunton. And I want to thank you guys very much. Now, on that note, I'm going to introduce this gentleman here, Mr. Brad Oates. And he's sitting in his, I guess it looks like his office in Alberta, British Columbia, Canada, correct?
Alberta, yeah, British Columbia is next door, but yeah, I'm here in Edmonton, Alberta.
Edmonton, okay. Are you an Oilers fan? You must have loved Gretzky when he took that team to those Stanley Cups. I assume. I guess that's what I always figured. Most Canadians are big on the hockey.
Yeah, those were certainly the golden days of the Oilers. I'm actually more of a baseball person. Toronto Blue Jays is my team in general. Oilers is a local team, no doubt.
Okay, true. Okay, good. All right. Well, we're going to talk about your work today, and what the kind of books you write. But we're also going to talk about I profile every guest by talking about what they were like as kids and how they got to where they're at. You were recommended to me by one Matt Fisher, who's a great film producer out here in the northeast of New England, the USA, Massachusetts. So we'll find out how you got associated with him, and if you had any work, any of your work was produced by any, in his bombastic film company. But tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? You a lifelong area resident from where you're at, not where you're at now?
Yeah, not too far from where I'm at now. I was born in High Prairie, Alberta, and then my family moved just before kindergarten to a little town called Mayerthorpe, Alberta. Okay. And that's where I grew up for the most part in a family of 5.
Wow. Is that really in the sticks up there?
Yeah, it's pretty far. Like Edmonton right now is considered, I think, one of the northernmost major cities in the world, tied with somewhere in Russia, I believe, is my understanding. Wow. And my town was a bit north of that.
Huh. Okay. So you're really up you're near the pole.
Yeah, we deal with some pretty cold weather up here.
Well, how is it today there?
Today it's actually beautiful. It's only about -5 or so, I think. That's
Seriously?
Celsius.
-5?
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's Celsius. I'm not sure exactly what that is.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, you had me thinking. Okay, if it's Celsius, then it's probably in the 50s and 60s. Because I
guess so. I know that we meet up when it's -40. It's the same in Celsius and Fahrenheit, and we get to that quite often in the winter.
Right. Yeah, because I have a neurostat thermometer I got for COVID a few years ago, and that was always that was measured with Celsius numbers too. All right. Yeah. Well, so you grew up you one of 5 kids in a big family, obviously living in that little town.
Yeah, one of 3 kids, 2 parents. Yeah, small town. So it was
5 people. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about okay, tell me about what that was like. What did you aspire to as a kid? And let's talk about that, and we'll see how it got you where you're at today.
I mean, writing was always a passion of mine. As far as long-term aspirations, I think they bounced around quite a bit. I had a little bit of time where I wanted to be like a rapper or something like that.
Okay.
Um, but I always cycled back to for novels, so that's what I ended up doing.
Okay. So you write novels. Do you write short stories too, or just novels?
I have, yeah. I've written a couple of short stories. Um, Published a couple of anthologies with. I was with a group called the Edmonton Writers Group.
Okay.
So I published a couple of anthologies with them and sold proceeds going to the Edmonton Public Library. I think we've put out 3 of those, and then ultimately I moved on to novels. Is really my passion.
Okay. What kind of novels? Is it fiction?
Um,
I mean, obviously,
yeah, I write into literary fiction, so not really genre specific. I don't dabble as much into sci-fi or fantasy. It's more so character-driven literary fiction books. I've got 2 published right now. Well, my newest one will be coming out March 28th.
okay, that's awesome. How old were you when you published your first book?
Um, like first like fully published by a publishing house was back in 2018, so I would have been, I guess, about 35 years old.
Okay.
I started publishing like independent publishing and self-publishing those anthologies in my late 20s, I would guess.
Okay. So, okay. Do you have any idols in the literary world that you aspire to?
Well, my hero has always been J.R.R. Tolkien. A lot of my earliest childhood memories are just being curled up on the couch with my parents as they read me The Hobbit and The Lord
Hobbit,
of the
yeah.
Rings, and they sang the songs as they went through it. I just got lost in that world. So that's always been my go-to. My bookshelf, I have an entire top shelf just of Tolkien's works. So he's my hero, but I wouldn't say it's something I'm trying to emulate. I try to do my
Yeah.
own style.
Yeah, yeah, because you said that that wasn't, you're not really in writing sci-fi and fantasy. It's more like just happenstance. Now I've never I mean, if I wanted to buy a book of yours, would I find myself laughing? Because some of the writers do really well with great irony and creating the best. And I wrote a book of short stories myself in the 90s. It was
I was
self-published.
aware of that, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even, the funny thing is, like so many things I've done in life, when I started it, I had no idea I'd have enough material for a book when I finished it, and I had no idea that it would take me so long. But it was like it's kind of evolved slowly. I'd always been a fan of the short story because my parents had a big library. They still do, of a lot of classics, and a lot of them included short stories. And I always liked short stories because I could read them in one sitting if they weren't too long. And then I became really really inspired by different writers like Kurt Vonnegut. And then I found this guy named Tobias Wolff, who I believe is an upstate New York resident, and he was pretty funny with his classic, just kind of like offbeat style. And when I started reading him in the 90s, that's when I really started taking off for those short stories that would eventually become a book. I sort of I felt like I was trying to copy his style. He used analogies, like when he described the male organ, he'd call it Florida, that kind of thing. I mean, I thought that was kind of funny, I mean, that
I
kind of
like
thing,
that, yeah.
using these analogies. Now, when you do that, how enriched are you in metaphorical verse, would you say?
I mean, yeah, I certainly try to rely on metaphor where it's necessary, and I would classify my books as kind of a dark humor.
Oh, okay,
So if you did pick it up, I certainly hope you'd be laughing at least a little bit. Um, I've got 2 of them out right now, and if anybody has influenced my style, it might be a Hunter S. Thompson. I spent
okay,
some time down in New Orleans, and I was reading him quite nonstop. And afterwards, I felt like it was very hard to get back to my own style. So I ended up doing a short story that was just intentionally kind of using his style just to get it out of my system.
right,
I really enjoy his humor and his insight as well.
okay. What about Vonnegut? Any influence there?
I've read a little bit of Vonnegut. I don't know if he's influenced me as much. I think like he writes some really broad stuff like Slaughterhouse-Five and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I've never gone that wild with my writing, and I'd like to. I hope that he influences me in the future more than he has so far.
Well, it sounds like your career is just sort of at the beginning now, and you have a long way to go.
One can hope.
Well, tell me about the press reviews you've gotten so far. Have you gotten a lot of them, or any from any of the papers, either up your way or any of the big publishing neighborhoods in North America or anywhere else?
I wouldn't say any of the huge, like the really big. New York Times has yet to review me, although hopefully
Okay.
they'll change that soon. But I've certainly got some press locally, some Canadian reviews, and mostly pretty good stuff. Yeah, I've had some people question some of my choices, but that's all part of the part and parcel,
Right.
of writing. So pretty
Okay.
good overall, and I always enjoy it. I've worked with a lot of early writers, and I always tell them that if you're going to make it as a writer, if you're going to do anything, probably in any of the creative fields, one thing you want to really learn to love is the red ink. When you get feedback and you can make something of it rather than just being defensive about it, I think that's really the hallmark of somebody who wants to perfect their craft.
Oh, I know. I believe me. I've experienced a lot of frustration and people not understanding my stuff after working so hard. And my father was he was, very, very genuine, but sometimes what he told me was not what I wanted to hear. But I've still always be grateful to him for critiquing me the way he did. When he'd say, "Oh, I don't understand where you're supposed to be going with this." But I did take a comp and lit course in college, and I had a really good professor there. He was very, very, well versed in his writing, and he wrote some articles. I don't know if he ever wrote any books of fiction, but what he did write was good, and he recommended I get the elements of style and use that as kind of like a guide to my writing if I wanted to continue it. Did you go to college at all for writing, or did you take any courses at school?
No, I went to university. I was offered a chance to do a master's in English, but I actually
Yeah.
didn't pursue that. I kind of thought like if I'm going to get around to writing, it's more be the quality of what I write than what's on my resume that gets any kind of success. So I did my degree in psychology actually, with a minor in philosophy, which is obviously paying off dividends.
Well, where did you do it? Where'd you say? What university? Was it in Canada? I assume it was.
Yeah, University of Alberta, right here in Edmonton. I
Right.
moved from
Okay.
Mayerthorpe straight into Edmonton to start university, and I've been here since.
Okay. All right. So now you're minded in psychology. Do you think that helps at all with your writing? Using certain psychological tools to come up with the plots
Yeah,
to your stuff.
I would like to think so. Yeah, both the psychology and the philosophy, I think, probably influence my writing. I like to get in people's heads in writing and kind of explore what makes people tick and search for meaning and stuff like that. Viktor Frankl is another writer that I would reference as very important to my development.
Okay.
And the philosophy as well. I try to. I border on philosophic writing. At least I try to, if I'm
Right.
not flat myself. Try to explore kind of human concept and
Okay.
what makes us human and what it is to be a good human, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that was a Facebook quote of yours I'm pretty sure I remember seeing when we were setting up the interview. Okay. Now, let's see. Now you say you like dark humor. Have you ever done anything? Have you ever taken any of your work and gotten it, metamorphosized into a film or anything like that, or like a short video, anything, or have you planning to try that?
No, I haven't yet. It's something that I would be very interested in trying. My artistic inclinations are strictly for the written word and the alphabet. I
Okay.
can't draw or act to save my life. And I mean, you can hear my voice. I'm no kind of singer. So I'd love to see my works take life, but I think it would be up to meeting the right person to help that come along.
Well, hearing your voice, now that you mention it, you sound like you could be a great singer. You sort of have like a brogue kind of voice, broguish voice with which is always, usually somebody like male with like a falsetto voice like you. I don't know, what is it? Not a what's the deep one? Maybe a baritone. I'm not a falsetto.
Baritone or bass, yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like if you wanted to, you could probably be a very good singer. You almost look like one of the tenors. You're not as good as they are, but you know what I'm saying.
Oh, that's certainly what I'm going for. Yeah. No, this is really the only tone my voice has. It doesn't go many other directions. So
No, it's a good tone. I mean, have you ever lectured anywhere? Have you ever like given a speech to people? Have you ever taught anything about writing to anybody, or have you maybe planning on getting into that?
a little bit, yeah. Like I said, I used to run a writing group here in Edmonton,
Oh, you
so
did?
I'd present to people on that, and I've done a couple of presentations at local libraries, and I think one at a school once, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So I've done a little bit of that, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you have done that. Did you draw well, do you think, for those events?
I think most of those were kind of like pre-booked. I'm appearing in a classroom to talk
Yeah.
about what it is. So I pulled 30, but their butts were in those seats whether I was there or not. So I don't know if I can credit it entirely to myself. But it's been well. When I was doing my writers group, we always had good attendance, and I did a couple of events at libraries that had good turnouts. So I've been proud of those accomplishments, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. Now, your dialect is sort of does sound like a brogue. Is that I assume that's typical of the area where you live, right? I mean, I call that a Canadian brogue, I would say. That's the way to
Yeah, I think I talk pretty similar to people around.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool.
Yeah, here in Alberta, yeah, I think I talk pretty general for what's around me.
Right. Exactly. Okay. All right.
Whereas you're Massachusetts, is it?
Yeah, I got a Boston dialect. It's wicked thick. That's basically and that's kind of the way we talk around here too. Have you ever been?
Yeah.
Have you ever been in the United States before? Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in New Orleans. Well, tell me where have you traveled in the U.S.?
Well, I went to New Orleans. That was for a jazz fest a couple of years, maybe almost 10 years ago now. I got to see Springsteen, Fogerty, a whole bunch of people, and then just spent a whole bunch of time bouncing around the city and experiencing its libations, if you will.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, been to New York twice, I believe, and a couple music festivals throughout the Midwest, Ohio, Illinois, driven as well. I drove the first time I went to that music festival all the way from here in Edmonton down to Cave in Rock, Illinois, it's called. So I've seen a good bit of the States.
But have you been in New England at all?
Not yet. No, it's something I've been meaning to do.
Okay. How are you familiar with Matt Fisher? He's the one who recommended you.
Matt Fisher and I actually do a podcast on his Boombasticast network.
Okay.
It's the Wicked Juggalo Pod Trash. So shouts out to him and Candace on that show. And we just met online. He was looking for people who would help host, and I had just been wrapping up another podcast and was looking for something to kill a bit of time. So I joined that, and it's been on and tight since then.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. How long ago was that? I think he just started that. They just started their podcast like within the last few months, didn't they?
He's always got a lot on the go.
He does.
Ours has been probably since mid last year, I would say. We've been going a little while. Not the oldest, but certainly not the newest either.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I had him on my show 11 years ago in 2012. And then I actually did an on-set interview for a film that he did, DJ Stand the Man. And I was in it. I got to do, in those days, I was doing on-set interviews with filmmakers and getting it. And as a reward, they put me in as extras. And he did. I played a wedding guest and I got to dance with some lovely ladies at the event. But
fantastic.
But it took, as usual with production on a major film, because it was a couple of hours, and it took over the time, the expected finished time of the film ended up being like a year or two after, what they had projected. They thought it would be done in 2013. It wasn't done until 2015, and they had some issues. They had to recast they had to reshuffle the cast for different, things that went down with that. But once it was done, it was great. And
okay, and your scene remained in the final cut?
Oh, I was in there, yeah. My name in the credits and everything, and it was fun. But let's face it, this is my gig right here, doing the show, interviewing people. Because I mean, I've had my time in films. I was an extra in a couple of big films. I was in Shutter Island and I was in Amistad all the way back in 1997.
Okay.
And, I got fired by Spielberg on set because of a faux pas that he created himself, but he didn't care. So. But yeah,
that's a story in and of itself. It's true. And you've been doing this show for 13 years, is it?
This is my 13th year. Yes, it will be officially this summer. So yeah, good memory on that. I like that you remembered that. But here's the thing:
that's amazing.
If you're ever planning to, I'm actually, after we finish the show today, I'm going to be helping out on a film, pretending to be in a TV commercial. So if you with some of the people here at the station, if you ever have an event or if you ever have an inclination to try and create videos or little short films from your work, I'd love to be in one if that can work for you. If I have the time, you just got to let me know.
Oh, for sure. If I ever have the opportunity to do that, I'll keep you in mind. Yeah, you were my book is just coming out, and I went to Matt and I asked, anything you can do to help me with the promotion, and you were the first name he came up with, so I'm sure happy to be here.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too. You want to talk about that particular book that you just mentioned? You want to give a little synopsis without giving away too much?
Yeah, I've got it right here. It's actually my advanced copy.
Let's look at that. Look at that bad boy. Oh, I love that cover. What's it called?
Meaningless.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 words.
Yeah.
So it's kind of about a guy struggling to find meaning in this dystopian kind of corporate hellscape, and as he's chasing it all the wrong places, each day just begins to mean a little less.
Okay.
So it certainly is the dark side of dark humor, but I try to do like a commentary on, the general corporate mindset and the world nowadays. So I hope it rings true for some people.
Okay, well, being that you mentioned corporate, have you ever been involved in any like white collar employment which involves being a member of a major corporation? It sounds like, I mean, you seem to, I think people are better off writing about what they know about, and I'm starting getting the impression, looking and talking to you, that you could definitely be in a white collar profession somewhere, in addition to the writing that you do, or have been.
Yeah, the writing definitely doesn't pay all the bills. So I actually work for a local municipal government, kind of a social work adjacent position. I'm a solutions navigator with Strathcona County.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how I keep the lights on. As far as like major corporations, I haven't delved into that and try to avoid for the most part. This is actually, the outfit was actually chosen long ago to be kind of the black flag to corporate culture, instead of the white shirt with the black flag, just all reversed.
I see. I like it. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I definitely got kind of a genre from your clothes, with your suit, without a doubt, of sorts. And obviously that's a corporate genre, not a literary one, but they kind of do go hand in hand. You think?
Yeah, a lot of my writing, even on my blog, is a little bit in the political zone and commentating on some of those things. So I've tried to create a bit of an image around that.
Okay, well, guess what? We're down to the final 5 minutes of the show. I can't believe it, but we made it go by.
Wow, that has happened really fast.
Yeah, we always have fun on topic time. What is it, 10 minutes or 5? He's got 2 hands up. Which is it? 4?
9.
9. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, never mind. We still got 9 minutes. I'm sorry. He put up 2 hands, and I thought, okay, all right, we can still talk a little more about. Okay, that's cool.
Got 4 minutes to play with then. Tell me a little bit about that short story collection of yours. I heard you mentioned it on one of your other interviews.
What? Mention what?
Your short story collection.
Yeah, yes. I wrote a book called Short Stories with a Cutting Edge in the 90s, as I said. And as I said, when I began it, I had no idea. It wasn't until I started reading Tobias Wolff in the mid 90s. I started writing the stories in the early 90s. But once I picked up his style, I started stringing together a whole bunch of stories that I felt would work. And then finally, when the accumulation of words reached about 50,000, I remember in 1989, I had taken a short story writing course at a local college here, Bridgewater State. It's now called Bridgewater State University. Back then it was Bridgewater State College. The guy that taught the course was a short story writer himself, and he had his own printing press at the school. So what he was doing was he published his own books of short stories, and he did pretty well with them. But finally, I took this course in 1989, and then, as I said, the 90s evolved, and they rolled on. And then once I got to 50,000 words, and I had what I felt was a large enough manuscript to create a full book of those short stories, I shopped it around a little bit, and then I went right back to him. So 10 years later, he actually published a book for me at his press. So it was great. And then he realized if he could do it for me as well as himself, he could do it for other people too. So then, as far as I know, we started doing that. He started giving people the opportunity to get books published at his very little cozy printing press that he had at the school. And it worked out pretty good. And I sold, I didn't sell millions of copies, but I sold thousands. I'd literally go door to door. And I got a little TV news coverage in New Hampshire. It was great in 2002. It's hard to believe it's been that long. And the stories themselves, well, they're shocking, they're sexual, they're profane, they're off the wall. And
all the best adjectives for a book.
Absolutely. They make people laugh, though. I remember. Now, my brother, who works he worked at our local city hall in Brockton, Massachusetts. What he would do is, he doesn't work there anymore. He's now in real estate, and he works for one of the politicians in the area. But what he would do is he'd take the copy of the book, and then when they were getting ready to leave for the day and go and have their favorite watering hole, him and his cronies would at the hall would sit and read the stories out loud and crack up. That's what they told me. I wasn't there, but that's kind of cool to hear. And even though they were kind of the same over and over again, there was enough there so that they could do a different one every day for however long they did it for. I'm not sure. But yeah, so my book is pretty wild. And the guy who got my show profiled on a podcast liked my book so much that he works at Channel 12 in Providence, Rhode Island. He got me in a commercial. And he also wants to take some of those stories in my book and turn them into little like film scripts, films, short films, like we're talking about maybe doing with your books. So I don't know if it's going to happen.
It's pretty rare that a book is able to launch a whole printing press. That's impressive.
Oh yeah, well it didn't really launch it. He was doing okay. It just gave him more. Well, the funny thing is, and it's not funny, but you want to hear like an ironic event. He actually had Mike Hurley, the guy that published my book. He had a heart attack between the time that he published my book and the time he started publishing another guy's book. He survived it. He did okay, and and then when he came back, he jokingly said, I said, I think he had his heart attack because he drank too much coffee and he smoked a lot of these little cigarlets. But he said to me, jokingly said, you and that Portuguese poet whose book I published, you're the ones that gave me the heart attack with all the work I put into it, So, I mean, so he had a good wit about it. He was kind of a rough and tumble guy, kind of reminded you of Charles Bronson. I don't know if I sort of lost touch with him. I haven't talked to him since 2001. I hope he's still around. If he is, he's 83. If he is, I doubt he's still teaching because at 83, usually they retire, but he was a rugged dude. So, I mean, he was one of my heroes, I'd say. So one of my true life literary heroes. And now we are under 5 minutes, by the way.
Okay.
All right. So what I want you to do,
5 minutes.
Yeah, we're under it. So what I want you to do is, like I said at the beginning, just look into your computer screen, give shouts out to a few people that are going to see the show. We'll condense them and then we'll wrap the show up with my music, the way we began it. So go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks to my parents, my mother and my late father. Without them, I certainly wouldn't be reading or writing. So
okay. Wow.
Genesis of it, to my partner Janine and my dog Bogny, and to my friends Matt and Candace over at the Boombastic Cast Network and the Wicked Juggalo Pod Trash. And lastly, if you see my book or order it online, it should be available through Indigo, Barnes and Noble, any of the major publishers. Pick it up, leave me a review, reach out. I'd love to hear feedback.
And you go by Brad Oates, right? Your real name is that just as Brad Oates as an author?
I do, yeah. I actually Brado Inc. is my pen name on my blog, but for my actual novels, I just use my own name. Yeah.
Okay, if someone wanted to order the book, they just order it through Brad Oates, right?
Yeah, that's the name to search, Brad Oates.
Okay. Well, I hope you had fun with me.
It has been an absolute pleasure, Harrison. I hope to talk soon.
Okay, well, here's what I want you to do. If you had fun with me, I'd like you to, if you can think of anybody that would be a great guest for my show, have them send them my way. You got my digits now. Have them text me, call me. We'll get them on either by Zoom or in person.
For sure. I will do that.
All right. Now I have one last favor. When we wrap the show up, would you stick around and do a picture or two for Facebook and I'll tag you in it?
That'd be my pleasure.
Okay. All right, Brad, thank you so much for doing my show. Good, good luck with everything with your writing. I'm definitely going to look into ordering your book, and I'll let you know what I think of it, even if I have to be critical, because that's the only way you'd want it, I am sure. Yeah, by all means. It's the only way to grow. It's the only way to go. So on that note, we're going to wrap the show up. You ready to snap the rule as we did at the beginning? Can I join? You sure can. All right, folks. Thanks for watching Topic Time. See you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Signing off.